Like Blake said, we're going to be talking about just some sprinkler repair. We're going to get into a couple of other little things as well in this presentation, just to sort of help you guys maximize the full potential of your irrigation system, especially with the twice per week watering schedule that's in place now. Yeah, who doesn't like a swag bag full of stuff for doing nothing but signing up and taking a pledge to do what you should normally be doing anyway, and that's using less water. So pretty much a win-win all the way around. All right, so let's get into this. If you guys have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat, and I will see if I can answer them. If it's something that's specific for Blake, hopefully he'll monitor the chat and keep an eye on that as well too. And then I'll have a slide with my contact information at the end of this. So if you have further questions beyond this, we can go ahead and address those. So here are some of the topics that we're going to talk about throughout the presentation. These are kind of the 4 most common problems that we see with sprinkler systems. Now, these are all like easy DIY stuff. If you get into something really heavy, like a broken valve or a broken pipe, that is, unless you're pretty confident in doing that, might be something left for the professionals, because those repairs never really just go smoothly. So always best left to the professionals, and be sure if you are doing irrigation work or getting irrigation work done that you're using a licensed irrigation professional. In the state of Texas, it is a law that for anybody to work on an irrigation system, consult on an irrigation system, install an irrigation system, do almost anything, look at an irrigation system, you are supposed to be a licensed irrigator. I am a licensed irrigator, number 16715. You can look up people on the TCEQ licensing or occupational licensing page. You can look people up by name, by company, by license number, to see if they're current, to see, or even if they have a license. And then you can also see what kind of continuing education credits they've had. So just keep that in mind. Always use a professional licensed irrigator when having any irrigation work done in the state of Texas. Okay, so let's just take a quick look here at something that I pulled up from a report done not too long ago that really talks about the water savings potential of twice per week watering, right? So these are some of the larger municipalities across the state of Texas. So in 2020, you could see that the water savings in acre feet, and an acre foot of water is, I don't even remember, 350 something thousand gallons of water. It's a lot. So you can see the low effort and then the high effort of savings, and the high effort is really with extensive enforcing these things. But even with the low effort, there is a significant amount of water savings to help meet demand in the future as Texas continues to grow and we start to see more and more houses being built, more and more irrigation systems installed with almost every one of those homes that are built. We're just going to really continue to see our water demands go up. So we want to try and do whatever we can to make sure that we are conserving water. But, obviously we don't want to sacrifice plant material. So we invest a lot in our landscapes. We want to make sure that we're giving it adequate water, and we can certainly do that with a twice per week watering schedule. There's no problem with that. The key is when we have things like this going on, right? So this is not only a waste of water, but it is not watering any of the material that it should be watering, right? So look at this picture on the far left, that big geyser shooting up. You can see the dry spot between that little shrub or tree and where the sprinkler head is. And that's because there's absolutely no water getting to that spot. So that's going to eventually suffer. It's going to dry out. It's going to die. It's going to be a dead patch. And now it's going to be a grass replacement or an ugly area where the soil is exposed. And then we're going to start seeing erosion from that soil as it runs off, right? So we want to be sure that we are not allowing these types of things to happen. Very common to see the sprinkler heads along a curb get messed up and break. Sometimes, a car will pull up and go up on the curb and hit that, or even the string trimmer repeatedly going down along the edge of that curb, hitting that sprinkler head could eventually break it. So just some common sights and things that we just always want to be aware of. So before I get into the repairs, I did want to mention quickly, well, not quickly, but briefly, let's use that word, how you guys should go about or could go about doing a good evaluation on your landscape. Now, I know that Upper Trinity Regional Water District does offer a free irrigation evaluation. That's a pretty popular program, and I know you need to sign up super fast to get it done, but that would be definitely beneficial for everybody, even somebody who is a seasoned irrigation operator, had an irrigation system in their house for a long time. There is always something to learn when you have a professional come out and walk through your irrigation system. So that's a service that's available to Upper Trinity Regional Water District customers. So I would say jump on that, take advantage of it. That is a great program. So one of the things that you may want to consider, right, on a nice warm summer afternoon when you don't mind standing in the sprinkler and getting wet, is to do a home catch can test. Right, so these are the things that you'll need. You'll need, something to measure with, a ruler, tape measure, a bunch of cans, right? Like low flat-sided cans. Tuna cans are the best for this because it's a direct measurement. There's no calculating, circumference or opening or any of that stuff. It's just the direct measurement of how much water is in the can. A stopwatch to track how long your system ran, and a calculator to do some simple calculations. This is handy because what we're going to learn a couple of things with a catch can test. One, we're going to learn what our irrigation system precipitation rate is, right? So we'll know how many inches or gallons, if we want to do that conversion, of water our sprinkler system applies for a certain period of time, right? So almost every municipality around offers some form of watering recommendation, irrigation recommendation, right? On a weekly basis. But if they're giving a runtime based on that amount or that recommendation, it is full of general assumptions, right? Just generally, this is the way a sprinkler works. Generally, this is how much a sprinkler applies. But guaranteed, every sprinkler system is different, right? It all depends on the design of the irrigation system, the heads that are on the irrigation system, the components, the valves, water pressure. I mean, there's so many variables, right? There's no two sprinkler systems that are going to be the same. So to really get accurate, this would be the way to do it, right? Is to do a quick catch can test. It's not, it's pretty good, pretty fun to do, and you'll learn a lot about your irrigation system. Not only will you learn precipitation rate, but you'll also get an idea of your distribution uniformity, or your DU. So this is something that I just put together. This is all arbitrary. None of this is real. I just made every bit of this up, but it's not uncommon that you would see this, right? So the little chart on the right there is 12 cans spread out throughout the irrigation system. And then I ran the system for 15 minutes. And this is how much water was in each of the cans, right? And you can see there's some various numbers, it was like 1/4 of an inch, half an inch, and that's not uncommon to see that, right? But if you see large swings in the numbers, very big differences, then we know we have a problem, or either it's a pressure problem or a clog, or or something's wrong with the header. Maybe our devices are mixed up, but it could create a situation where we're overwatering one area and underwatering another area. So not the most ideal situation. So anyway, with this, we add all these up, we average it, and we get a total of 0.41 inches in all of these cans for the 15 minutes. So to do our precipitation rate calculation, we just plug it into this formula, right? So we have our average catch can rate on the top, and then we have our time that we ran, which is 15 minutes. We want to look at it on an hourly basis because we're going to schedule a little bit differently when we schedule. So we do run that calculation and get 1.64 inches an hour for this particular zone, right? So now we have a general idea of how much water we're applying within a 60-minute period of time. So now we can make those adjustments for per hour watering recommendation on our irrigation system, right? That's a whole nother presentation on how to kind of program that, but just give you a good frame of reference of how much water does the irrigation system actually apply. And then of course you want to do this for each zone because all of your zones are going to be different. Well, you may have 4 rotor zones in or 4 rotors in one zone. You may have like 8 spray heads in another zone. Those are all going to have different precipitation or application rates, as sometimes it's called. So you'll want to do this catch can test for each individual zone so you have a good idea of how much water is being applied. So with that said, let's move into our repair section on here, and let's first look at some of the tools that you may want for doing this type of stuff. The picture on the top there are 3 different tools that are manufacturer specific tools for different devices. So that orange tool is a Hunter MP rotator tool. So MP rotators, it's a multi stream type of rotational head. Super great, super good. Really a great way to improve distribution uniformity and coverage. But that little tool will adjust the pattern of the sprinkler head and the distance that it throws. So all in one little tool. The round part in the middle grabs the ring around the sprinkler head and turns it to adjust the pattern. And then there on the very tip, there's a little metal wire that is like a tiny screwdriver. You can adjust the distance of the spray. So pretty handy little tool. You can generally get these anywhere, any place that sells MP rotator equipment. So I don't know if they have that much in the big box stores, but you can definitely get one online or at your local irrigation supply house. The middle one there is a green handled screwdriver. That's by Rainbird. It actually has like a little T on the end, so you can pull up on rotors. You can use the screwdriver tip to make adjustments on all of their types of spray heads or rotating nozzles that they have. And then the white one is another just kind of a generic tool that's used for making adjustments specifically on large rotors, right? So the back side of the handle helps pull the rotor up. The front part is a little metal hex screw that goes in that changes the spray pattern. Very handy tool if you have rotors. And like I said, all of these are pretty readily available, but you may just want to have these in your toolbox if you're going to be doing a lot of irrigation repair. You can always find something else that would work. There's a ton of tools out there. So you can always find something that'll work, but these are designed for doing that stuff. And then the other thing are these Rainbird pliers. These things are fantastic. They have like little hooks on the end, so you can grab a spray head and pull it up if it's in the retracted position. The general purpose is to clamp onto the riser of a pop-up and hold that riser up out of the body so you can actually change or fix a nozzle or spray head actually on the top. So you can do that with some other tools, a pair of channel locks or whatever. You just have to be careful that you don't crimp it too tight and crack the plastic. So these have just the right amount of tension to hold them up. So definitely grab these tools and have them handy when you're doing repairs. So so let's talk about a few things. Number one thing that we're going to talk about is adjusting misdirected heads, right? Like I said earlier, when we have sprinklers that run along the edge of a driveway or a curb or a sidewalk, and we're running, a string trimmer or edger or something along there, we can knock these alignment out of whack and get them kind of spraying in the wrong direction. The ultimate goal is to spray the grass, right? I mean, or the plant material or whatever it is that we're watering. That's where we want the water, right? We don't want it on the sidewalk. We don't want it on the driveway. We don't want it in the street. We want it to hit our target application, which is going to be our plant material. So what we want to do is look at how we're going to make a number of these adjustments on different types of sprinkler heads. And you can see in the pictures, you can see the bottom right picture there. You can see that orange Hunter tool being used right there in adjusting that spray head. That's the Hunter MP rotator. The little one kind of in the middle, that yellow head, that's a Rainbird multi-stream head. That one is usually adjusted by hand or by your fingertips, pretty easy. So that's what we're going to talk about right now. So rotors are one of those things that is a little bit different between the manufacturers. And there you could see those tools in action again, being used in there. But with the rotors, right, we want them to hit a certain spot and stop, and then go back the other direction and stop. So that's one of the adjustments that we need to make. We need to make sure we do that. And those adjustments are made by actually physically turning the body until it stops and then letting it rotate back around the other way. There really is no general tool that makes that adjustment makes it an adjustment appropriately until you have found the full stop on one end and the full stop on the other end of these rotors. You can make the adjustments, but they're not going to work as well until you've made the full stop on them. So a little bit trickier on there, and there's lots of videos out for you to be able to see that. This presentation would probably be forever if we just use videos, but we're just going to kind of talk about the basic adjustments on these. Now, the other thing is the nozzle on these. So these rotors have like a little nozzle, and when you buy one from a supply house, generally that'll come with a like a tree of different types of nozzles, and you can pull that nozzle out and replace that nozzle to get different patterns, different sprays, different distances on that. So you want to make sure you're using the right one, but the one thing you can adjust easily is the pattern. Both of these have like a little screw on the end that go in front of the nozzle, and you can tighten or loosen that screw up and change the pattern quite a bit on rotors. So a little bit more finicky. They take some time to adjust because of their slow operation. But when you get them adjusted pretty good, then you're going to be set for a while, right? There's not a whole lot that goes wrong with these, and you can see on here the difference between the Hunter and the Rainbird. To find that hard stop position, which is where you want it to stop, the Hunter, right, has a hard right stop. So you have to turn it all the way to the right until it stops. And then from there, you make your adjustments, right? If all the way to the right until it stops is spraying out into the middle of the street, then you're going to have to turn the whole thing and crank it back into position. Once you get that hard stop fixed to where it's spraying where you want it to spray, then you can make your micro adjustments with your tool on there. Same with the Rainbird one, but it has a left stop. So you have to turn it all the way to the left and make that stop. And then you can do your micro adjustment. So little, some differences between these, why they're different. I don't know. Everything is different. So, but the basic operation is the same. Just the process changes just a little bit on those. Probably one of the bigger things that we see are clogged heads, right? A clogged head is going to prevent the pattern from coming out of the sprinkler in an appropriate way, right? In a way that is good or meets the manufacturer's specification, right? The sprinkler is designed to have a certain pattern to it, be operated under a certain pressure, have a certain distance or throw to it, and when these heads get clogged, all of that is out the window. So we're not getting the full potential of the sprinkler head when they get clogged in. They'll get clogged with like little bits of dirt and different things that get in there, because when these things are in the grass, in the dirt, and when they retract, they'll pull little bits of pieces of dirt in with them, or when you mow or edge or whatever, you'll get little pieces of debris will get caught up in there. So it's not unusual for these things to get clogged, and a little bit of maintenance can go a long way in getting that correct. So here's a little bit on how to repair a clogged head. And generally, when it's clogged, it is the filter that's inside the head. So that's really one of the only things that can really go wrong. So it's just a little plastic filter that's in there. You can see a picture on the right of like a typical spray head in the middle, and then a Hunter MP rotator and a Rainbird multi-stream rotator. I don't really know what their technical term is for theirs. But a lot of times that little screen just pops off of these rotating heads, or it just comes off the bottom of this spray head. It's not attached on there difficultly or hard. It's a soft plastic, and it's just a fine screen. Like, it really is all it is. It's meant to catch big pieces of debris, but if you get enough big pieces of debris caught up on there, then it's not going to allow the water to pass through, right? It's going to get clogged. So best thing to do is just use your pliers, crimp the riser in the up position, unscrew the head, pull the filter out, and just rinse it out. Make sure it's clean inside and out. Put it all back together and see if that fixes your problem. With rotor heads, there's a filter screen typically in the body, so a little bit more work, but you can unscrew the whole mechanism out of the body itself without having to dig a hole and dig it up. And inside there, you'll find a little screen in the bottom of the rotor head. That is an area where that can get clogged. We don't see as much clogging on these because they're larger, they blow a lot more water out, and just the nature of the construction of them, we don't see a whole lot. But if we're getting some, then this is the first place to look. And we'll talk about some other repairs too, which involve taking rotors apart, but not generally a difficult repair at all. Just sometimes a little bit of time. But that is kind of the common issue if your head is not operating the way it should be. So the other thing we see too is a head that is either too low or is crooked. So again, these heads are sitting in soil. A lot of times in Texas, we have pretty heavy clay soil, and that soil shifts and moves. And then over time, if we have an older sprinkler system over time, the heads will just kind of start to sink just from foot traffic being walked on them, buildup of organic material in the turf grass is going to lower it. So there's lots of different things that can happen here. Or maybe we just need to raise the head because we're going to start mowing our grass higher, and now we need to get that coverage because the turf grass is now blocking the spray head. So this is a common issue that happens quite a bit, and especially on sprinkler heads that are like along a walkway. Or on a driveway, maybe the car, pulls over and, gets on the grass and pushes on it or moves it around. But when it is leaning, right, it is not spraying water where it should be. It's either leaning into the grass and it's spraying the water straight down into the grass, so we're not really getting the coverage that we need. Or it's leaning backwards and it's spraying up in the air. We're losing more water to wind drift and evaporation in that case. So remember, with our sprinkler system, we're looking for a head-to-head coverage. So if it's not oriented appropriately, the spray is not going to reach the next head, and vice versa. So that's what we want for the maximum impact of our sprinkler system, is we want that head-to-head coverage. So, all right, so raising a head, a couple of pretty good diagrams. It's pretty easy. You're gonna have to do some digging, dig up the turf grass around it, and you're probably gonna have to dig all the way down to where the sprinkler head connects. So there are a couple of different ways that we see sprinkler heads put in. So one is called a swing joint, which is the picture on top. You have like a flexible line to the sprinkler head, and this is really, really popular on like sports fields because it allows that head to move up and down with the impact that it's getting. So from playing sports on it, running on it, constantly running a lawnmower over it, those types of things. We don't see it as much in residential. What we see a lot more in residential is the picture on the bottom, where we just have like a threaded coupler that comes out of the PVC pipe and the sprinkler head just threaded right to that coupler. So either way, to raise a head, if it's on a swing joint, you may be able to just lift it up and pack the dirt back around it, right? In some cases, if it's really low, you may have to extend the length of your flexible tubing, so which makes the repair a little bit more difficult, right? With your typical type of residential application, there's a couple of different things you can do. There's a riser, which is these plastic deals on the right that you can cut to make them longer or shorter. The one on the top would be, you would take the existing threaded coupler out of the PVC pipe and put in a brand new and install that one directly into the pipe, cut at the height that you need it to get the sprinkler head up to the soil surface. Right? We don't want to stick it up too high because we don't want to hit it with the lawnmower or something. So we want it just right at that soil surface. If it's a case where we're letting the grass grow taller and we need more height, then we can always go with a taller or longer spray body, right? So they make these in like a 2-inch, a 4-inch, and a 6-inch and beyond. So if you want that longer, taller riser to pop up higher out of the grass, then maybe a 6-inch would be the direction you need to go. And then in that case, you may have to have a smaller or shorter coupler into the PVC pipe. So none of this is real hard. A lot of this stuff is easy. This stuff can be cut with a utility knife. It's pretty soft plastic. The picture on the bottom is actually a threaded riser. So in this situation, you don't have to remove the coupler that's already in. Oh, well, there's the question, and I answered it for you. Perfect. So you don't have to remove the existing one that's in there. You can just thread this threaded one right on top of the old one, and then you've got your rise. So generally they're about 1/2-inch increments in the cut points on these risers. So, and you can buy these really cheap, like $1 or so at almost any hardware store. They've got a ton of them. So if you have a leaning head, a little bit different here in this situation, but the same principle applies. You're going to have to dig it up around the head and dig down and see what's happening. Sometimes it's leaning just because the soil has shifted and pushed the head over. Sometimes if it's on a swing joint, then that whole mechanism has moved. Or if it's on a pretty tall riser, like let's say your irrigation pipes are buried like 12 inches down, like a foot down. That's a pretty tall little threaded riser to get it from the lateral line up to the sprinkler head. So maybe that has folded over, moved, or bent in some way, shape, or form, and you'll probably need to replace that. But best thing is dig up around the head. Dig up the grass first, move it out of the way, dig up around the head, see what the issue is, straighten the head out, and then repack the soil around it really good. You can put gravel, you can put other stuff in there if you want. You can do whatever in that situation, but bottom line is make sure that you've packed the soil back down really good around it just to help stabilize that head, and then put the turf grass back on top the way it came off. That's going to give you the best repair that you can in that, and then hopefully keep it from leaning again. But like I said before, it just happens. Our soil shifts and moves. Another really, really common problem is a stuck sprinkler head. Okay, so these happen to rotors, to pop-ups. They just kind of get a little bit old. They, will push up. They push up through pressure, right? And then when the pressure cuts off, there's just some grit and grime in there, and it won't retract. So you've got this sprinkler head sticking up, which could be a tripping hazard, or if you're mowing the lawn, you don't see it. Now you've whacked the thing completely off, leaving you with a pretty nice geyser next time the irrigation system comes on. So not a pretty common issue, but not really a big deal to fix. So here we'll go through a few examples of how to fix a stuck head with just minimal digging. Now, and sometimes they're just stuck. There's nothing you can do to fix it. So you just need to go and buy a new one, right? And sometimes that's the case with these, but luckily, there's a lot of support. But in the short run, it's always good to try and fix it, and so you don't need to run to the store and constantly spending money on parts and getting frustrated. So let's go through 3 stuck sprinkler head fixes that all involve minimal to no digging, right? That's the key. We want to fix it. We want to fix it fast, efficiently, and we don't really want to have to spend a whole bunch of time out there digging, especially if it's hot in the summertime. So the first one is, the first thing to do is extend the riser or the shaft up, right? And then put your tool on there to hold it into place. Take off we'll clean it off the top of it, make sure the grass is pulled back, make sure everything is clean, wipe it off with a nice clean cloth. Look at it to make sure it's not broken, cracked, or there's large pieces of debris. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove the sprinkler head. So just like when we were cleaning the screen before, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to remove the sprinkler head. We're going to flush it out. We're going to make sure that water is coming through it appropriately, right? So we have our tool on there. We can turn it on, watch the water gush out of it. That's going to also take any debris that might be stuck in there out. It's going to flush that out. We're going to make sure our screen is clean, our head is clean. We're going to put it back together, and we're going to see if that fixes the problem right there. That's pretty easy, pretty quick fix on that. the next one is a little bit more work. And this is what you want to do if the first one doesn't actually fix the issue. So you can see the different components here on a typical spray body unit or pop-up that we have. We've got a spring inside, we've got like a plunger, and it's a pretty simple operation. There's no rubber or anything necessarily in here. It's all like plastic seals, but it's kind of good to know like exactly what it is that we're dealing with. So with this one, we're gonna pull the riser shaft up. And then we're going to hold it into position. We're going to make sure our grass is pulled back, make sure everything is wiped clean. And we're going to really check that wiper shaft, which is the little white part, or the wiper seal, which is kind of the little white part that goes around the riser. So we're going to make sure that that is all cleaned, everything is wiped clean. And then we're going to just lube the heck out of this thing, right? We're going to use either some type of penetrating oil or a lubricant. You can spray this with WD-40. I don't always advise that because WD-40 will wash off eventually, so you might end up with the same problem pretty soon. WD-40 is not necessarily a lubricant. It is a water displacer. That's the WD. It was created for soldiers during World War I, I believe, that were in the trenches, and it was developed to keep their guns from rusting and getting crummy in the bad weather. So it's really just a way to keep water from getting into something and settling on there. So a lot of people use it for lubricant. Works, but it's not the best. I would use some type of a 2-in-1 oil or a 3-in-1 oil. Or if you have some other type of lube or grease, but petroleum jelly works really good. So good old Vaseline works. It's oil-based. It's not going to wash off, and it's not super sticky either. So you won't get a lot of stuff sticking to it too bad. So just put that on there pretty good around the wiper seal and on the riser. Move it up and down a few times and make sure that it's coated pretty good, and let it go back down and see if that fixes the problem. That's generally a pretty good fix for a lot of these issues, or at least temporarily. Sometimes, if it just keeps getting stuck, then it's time for a new one. You just have to go in and replace the whole entire thing. And then the third thing is going to require a little bit of digging and a little bit of work. So we've tried the other two things. We're still not quite getting there. So now maybe it's a problem inside the sprinkler. Maybe we've got a problem in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to dig up enough turf grass around to expose the top part of the spray body. So, and that is, so we've got the body itself, which is what connects to the irrigation system underground, and then we have all the parts inside, and all of those parts unscrew out of that body by the top. You can see where it will unscrew. So not too bad, pretty easy. You may have to hold the body in place to actually get it to unscrew, especially if it's been in the ground for a while. But that's what we're going to do in this situation. We're going to unscrew the top, and we're going to pull everything out of it. Nothing is going to go flying out, right? So there's a spring in there. Just pull it out slowly and make sure you're keeping an eye on how everything goes back in if you're going to take it all apart. But it's pretty simple, right? It's way less complicated than what we want to make it out to be. But we're going to take it out. We're going to just inspect everything. We're going to really look at everything. We're going to wash it out with soap and water the best we can. Make sure everything is clean. We're going to put new lubricating oil on the shaft, on the spring. Make sure the spring is not rusty or crimped or bent. And then we're just going to reassemble it, just like we did everything else. We're going to run it without the head on it, right? We want to blow any dirt and debris out of there before we put the head back on, because you don't want to clog up that nozzle or the screen. So we're going to go ahead and put it all back together. and purge it with water, and then put the head back on, get everything aligned, and then we're going to test our system again. We're going to see how it actually is working, right? And that should be the last fix. If all of those things fail, then the next thing is just you're going to have to replace it. So luckily you've already dug it up a few times, so you have the soil should already be pretty loosened up for you, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal to go ahead and do the repair or replace it. So and that should get you pretty well fixed up with those. So with that, that's pretty much all I have with this. So those were the basic repairs for the things that we will see in general, right? In systems. Now there's always other issues, right? So if you have a whole zone that's not coming on, that is going to be probably a valve issue or a wiring issue. So if you don't know where all your valves are, then you may want to track those down and see if you can find those valves and mark them off. The grass will tend to grow over the covers on them, or it's time to, again, contact a professional to come in and take care of that stuff. So with that, I'll close out there, and then we got time for questions. If anybody has any particular questions, again, there's my contact information. So if you have something beyond this you want to ask about, go ahead and send an email and let me know. We'll see if we can figure out what's going on.